the way I see Japan going, like we talked about birth rate. Another thing is they're starting to allow immigration. So now there's going to be so many people that are going to be born and raised in Japan that isn't Japanese, and they're going to want to be accepted culturally.
Exactly.
So then they're going to say, I'm also Japanese too.
And so now you got Brazilians going up to the vending machine buying panties they can sniff on.
Yep. And then they're like, it's my culture.
It's my culture. It's where I'm from.
Oh, I'm a fresh Japanese Harajuku underwear.
So, Miss Japan is maybe the greatest Miss Japan of all time. You know why?
Because she's white.
Yeah, she's Ukrainian.
At least she's a she.
You see that shit?
At least she's a she, though. I'm glad they're playing the
I
right.
commented on this one.
Did you?
Yeah.
I saw your comment.
I think it's kind of cool.
Imagine.
What do you think is cool?
What is that?
That they're starting to challenge the idea of what's Japanese. Because I wouldn't be considered
Let me give you guys an
Japanese.
idea real quick.
All right.
So there you go, full context.
I like the fact that they're all pretty.
I think you know which one.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that.
I see no color. They all look Japanese to me.
Nice. So good. Such good commentary.
This isn't the first time though. In 2015, the Miss Universe Japan, she was half black, half Japanese.
But
Well, actually,
That's
she
a dope
was.
combo.
That sounds
Yeah.
hot.
this wasn't as white. This wasn't as
There's a
white
lot of
hot
Japanese
as-
Brazilians.
But she's still Japanese.
Yeah, the Japanese Brazilians.
There's a significant population of Japanese Brazilians.
Because this is also weird. I feel like you're entering a burger into a sushi contest.
You're right. No,
then the burger wins.
She's full Ukrainian. I think she was. She grew up there.
She grew up
she's,
there, yeah.
Isn't that interesting though? How like in our country, say in the UK or the US, the idea of being British or American or whatever is not it's not tied to ethnicity or family heritage. But then in other places it is, right? Like if you think of what it means to be Japanese, like someone could be born and raised in Japan, like completely speak the language, whatever, and be of another ethnic background.
And not be Japanese.
And they're still foreigners.
Yeah, and people wouldn't sort of, both Japanese people and even non-Japanese people would be like, you're not Japanese, you're not Japanese, you know? I just think it's interesting how it's kind of different for different countries.
And they're right.
They're right.
I'm not considered Japanese. So like, there's full-bred Shiba Inus, and then there's like us that we're called Nikkei. So we're like foreign-born Japanese. And when we go there, they don't see us as the same. And Japan tried to do a program, like you mentioned, there's a lot of Japanese in Brazil. And they created like this immigration program where it made it easier for them to kind of come to Japan because they needed more workers, right? So a lot of Japanese Brazilians went there and they just couldn't integrate. And they couldn't pass a test. They didn't know the language well. They didn't know the culture well. And then they were just like, oh, that's a failed experiment. So you can be full-blooded Japanese and you go back, but if you don't follow every kind of protocol they have, you're not accepted.
That's interesting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny about this article? For as inclusive as the BBC, for example, says they are, they say some recognize her victory as a sign of the times. Others said she does not look like a Miss Japan should. It's kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. It's also weird with languages when people like speak something that you totally don't expect them to. I remember I was once in a Czech Republic, and I heard a bunch of people speaking Polish behind me, and I was like, okay. I turned around. I expected to see like, ethnic Poles. It was a group of 3 black girls, and I was like, ooh, like my brain just did like a little, like what? And then I was speaking to them. I was like, oh, like where are you from? And so yeah, they were like born and raised in Poland. Their parents had immigrated there, like my parents immigrated to the UK from Nigeria.
Sure.
And it was just weird. It was just so strange hearing the language.
When they heard you speak, did they assume you were American?
I don't know.
Because you don't sound like you're from the UK.
Yeah, I don't have an obvious
Have you
Polish
been
accent.
back to Nigeria?
Yeah, many times. I was there last year.
How do we like Nigeria these days?
Nigeria's cool, man. I mean, I've never lived there myself.
Yeah.
So my siblings and my parents have. I'm the youngest in my family. When I think of Nigeria, man, I always just think of potential. Nigeria is a very frustrating country because it has so many things going for it in many ways.
Like what?
fast runners?
Gosh, I mean, it's the biggest population in Africa.
Okay.
Lots of highly educated, smart people, lots of natural resources, lots of entrepreneurial-minded people, and so on. But it suffers from various things, including, corruption at that level, but also brain drain, which is that
That?
Oh, brain drain is when the smartest, most educated, most talented people leave a country to go somewhere else
Got
for
it.
other opportunities.
Okay.
So there's
Literally
so
brain
many
drain.
Nigerians
Got it.
in the UK, there's so many Nigerians in Europe, in Australia, in the USA, whatever, meaning that...
You're here.
Yeah, right? So...
We brain suck.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, Americans, they give head. Americans
No,
give
no, we receive head.
My wife does.
Yeah.
My wife does.
Yeah, if you think, like, the USA
Thank God.
draws in so many talented, smart people.
So much head.
We brain take.
Yeah.
We give head.
We get head. We get head from everywhere.
How many
we give
languages
head.
do you speak?
I only speak English fluently. My Spanish is all right.
But he speaks like English and he speaks American.
Dude, he also speaks like
Direct.
the metric system.
That's more educated.
And he also speaks rhymey
I
climey.
can drive on the right, I can drive on the left, automatics, manual, you know.
Sick.
Yep, the only Americans
a
that
bubble,
understand kilograms are powerlifters and drug dealers.
You know what's interesting too about this article is that they call it Miss Japan, but there's a lot of different pageants that go on in the circuit.
Yeah, this one's like Grand
Yeah,
Prix. It's not that big.
Miss Nippon Grand Prix.
Yeah,
or
it's
whatever.
like some
But
small
then like
place,
that's
yeah.
like when there's like some random pageant in America and then someone wins that and like across the pond they'll be like, look at who won Miss America. It's like that's not Miss America. There's like 10.
It's like the Mushroom Cup in Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not that that's
It's like a little
you
beauty
know,
pageant in Fresno. or
It's not the
something.
Star Cup.
Not that that's like the smallest one.
Being woke is having a problem with beauty pageants in general.
Yes, well,
That's what.
It is funny to imagine that that's the only Miss Japan now.
But you
That
know,
would be
you know how you're
hilarious.
even bringing up that concept about how like we would understand in America or the UK if somebody won like Miss America or Miss UK, you wouldn't denominate that to, you know, them needing to look like a specific white or whatever. You would understand it's American, but like in Japan, we all understand that like it might be a unique thing or a topic to discuss if they don't look specifically ethno-Japanese. I mean, that's got to be an almost unspoken understanding almost like everywhere in one sense, like which countries kind of work with that and which countries don't. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe it's just America and the UK, for example. That
No, but it's not. I mean, France, Italy. So even within Europe, like it's kind of accepted that a British person, a French person, a German, an Italian, like they can be from whatever ethnicity background. But if you thought of like a Polish person or a Romanian or a Hungarian or Russian, like you associate it more with a specific ethnicity. I don't know exactly why that is actually. It exists, but
programming, just how we've been programmed and conditioned.
I kind of put it in a way where like let's say a Japanese girl won Miss Sweden. No, there's no controversy behind that. And it's because Europe already went through this. Because they went through the change of kind of linking nativism with nationalism. And I think that came when they kind of went through with they're more of an atheist nation, right? And then they're not linking like culture with ethnicity anymore. It's more like Western philosophical thought, and America, Canada, all the West is connected in that sense.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then I would consider East, Poland, Hungary, all them. I would, in the Balkans, I would consider them Eastern thought still.
But in America, we do this thing, right, where it's like, hey, this is the first time that this person has won a thing, right? So we're like, holy shit, that's so cool. 10 years ago, in Japan, Ariana Miyamoto nailed it, became the first biracial woman to be crowned.
Yeah, she was Miss Universe Japan
in 2015. And back then, with a Japanese mother and African American father, her victory raised a lot of questions about whether a person of mixed race should even be eligible to win. And now, like, the fact that this chick, this bitch, has no Japanese
Opposition.
heritage,
Yeah.
that's what's funny.
That was so,
Just how I talk.
so
Where I'm from.
unnecessary.
Just where I'm from.
I think my take on that is
It's a regional accent.
one, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was probably the catalyst to start the conversation.
Yeah.
And then the society changed in Japan. Since then, like there's more biracial celebrities out in the open. And I mean, now so many people pull up for the tennis player Ozawa. She's biracial, right? And then I think a lot has changed since then. So now if they're presented with this again, everyone's more cool with it.
I think so too.
So every country is just moving at their own.
It's like lubing, you lubing the vagina.
Yep.
If you want to go into it, you got to lube it first.
But that also means in like 100 years we keep up this, you know, thing. Everybody's gonna be the same shade of brown.
Be like Brazil.
I think cultures are constantly redefining what it is to be them, right? So like, for example, the way I see Japan going, like we talked about birth rate. Another thing is they're starting to allow immigration. So now there's going to be so many people that are going to be born and raised in Japan that isn't Japanese, and they're going to want to be accepted culturally.
Exactly.
So then they're going to say, I'm also Japanese too.
And so now you got Brazilians going up to the vending machine buying fucking panties they can sniff on.
Yep. And then they're like, it's my culture.
That's my culture. It's where I'm from.
Oh, I'm a fresh Japanese Harajuku underwear.
This is who I am. This is part of my identity.
Right?
Yeah, we can't say anything.
Does that also mean then that like stuff like 23andMe loses meaning if it says you're ethnically whatever Japanese, but it's like, oh, I'm just 100% Brazilian, or like, you know, like
Not really, because DNA is DNA.
so
Yeah, I think it's like identifying what that DNA and what that culture of the time is. So like, you know, there's ancient words or like, you know, for that region people like Mongol or whatever, like you have this allele and marker, but they don't say it by the border name. I think they just simplify it on 23andMe.
Also, I would imagine the more we go into the future and the more that everything mixes up in general, I think in a weird, fucked up human way, the more pride certain purebloods will have of their own stuff.
For sure.
Because the more rare it gets, the more pride you're gonna put into it. You know what I mean? I think,
It's like being unvaccinated.
yeah.
Fuck.
Your abs aren't purple. Fuck.
well, even people in Hawaii are like that, right? Like people that can prove that they're even like an eighth true Hawaiian. They're super proud.
Do you know what I think though? Is I think getting like, I can understand people feel it. Pride is a weird word, generally, because it's a shame that the English language only has like the word pride, because actually it has, in many languages there's multiple words for pride, like to the good kind, the bad kind, and so on. But I think it's interesting. I find when people take like ridiculous levels of pride in something that's just an immutable trait.
Something that they were given. They had no choice in the matter.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a loser. I think it's
You don't have any accomplishments.
I think it's
so
just
you're
kind of
like-
lame. I just think it's lame. It's like, you know, if I'm just sitting here talking about, you know, my blackness, or I'm so proud of being black, I didn't work for it. Like, it's not a personality trait. It's not
wasn't
an
a choice.
Yeah, it's not an achievement. It's just like, oh, I'm so proud to be like, it's just like, okay.
Yeah, but as the
like,
white guy who's
you
like
just,
going, oh,
you just are. Like, I think it's good.
I want to get there.
I think the good type of pride is like meaning you're comfortable in your own skin. Cool.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm cool. I feel no shame in like who I am. I'm who I am.
I like talking about accomplishments that were done by guys that look like me, but I had nothing to do with it.
But then you have to take their sins too, because it cuts both ways, right? Then it's like, oh, someone like you 200 years ago did this, who looked like, you know, they shared your melanin tone, and 200 years ago, it's like, it's all
No,
goofy.
you can pick and choose.
You know,
You get to cherry pick whatever you
And I do. I tell people I'm Irish.
When it
I like
serves
to
you, yeah.
represent and defend all men because we're all on the same team against women.
Let's cut that. We're gonna cut that.
That's the one you cut?